The UK is trying to drag the US into World War III. Welcome to the news and thank you for tuning in to listen. There's a chap called Tobias L. Wood who spent the past week doggedly promoting his latest idea to save Western civilization. From a military perspective, L. Wood explained during a recent speaking engagement, it has never been more urgent to impose a humanitarian sea corridor off the coast of Ukraine. This will involve an outright naval intervention by NATO in the Black Sea, with the objective being to prevent Russia from ceding control of the strategically important city of Odessa. Perhaps upon commencement of this mission, Elwood suggested listless denizens of the West will finally come to appreciate the existential stakes of the conflict now before us and accept that we are actually in a 1938 period, but actually worse. The double actually was presumably included for maximum emphasis. Notably, Elwood is not some random crank. He's actually a member of the Parliament in the United Kingdom and the chairman of the impressively titled Defence Select Committee. In that latter capacity, he seeks to exert influence over the defence policy of Her Majesty's government, which is currently led by his Conservative Party colleague Boris Johnson. During the private event hosted by Think Tank, which unilaterally and hilariously decreed his comment off the record, Elwood described the plan he envisaged for how this new phase of military intervention in Ukraine would unfold. It should be up to the UK to create a coalition of the willing, he declared, borrowing the terminology once used for countries that participated in the US invasion of Iraq, which memorably included the UK. Elwood evidently detected no ignominy at all in this historical association. On the subject of Ukraine, Elwood's view is that the UK and Europe must stop waiting around for the US to get its act together and instead proactively initiate a kind of muscular, unapologetic military action that is currently needed against Russia. The lesson of last year's Afghanistan withdrawal, he was charged, as well as Joe Biden's purported Ukraine-related deferring, has been to expose America to very, very hesitant indeed. He explained, I see the United States almost catching up with where, from a military perspective, a vanguard may actually go. Note that Elwood's plan certainly does not assume that the US will somehow just sit out whatever forthcoming war the UK may instigate. With the US as the real firepower behind NATO, that is obviously not feasible. Instead, his idea would simply be for the UK to place itself at the vanguard of precipitating the new military action, after which the US would inevitably be engulfed as well. Time is of the essence, Elwood contends, because communist China has ominously joined with Russia to set about dismantling the liberal world order, a development Elwood believes will elevate the conflict to a magnitude on par with the Peloponnesian War of Greek antiquity. Communist China will exploit the war in Ukraine to hasten America's inevitable decline, he warned. Out of these ashes, at least according to Elwood's apparent calculus, will rise the UK. If we want Putin to fail, Elwood declared, then we need to conclude this in a month. We need to vow to press forward, he added. I underline how critical it is. If others are false, then I'm afraid it is going to be very, very difficult for us to turn this around. Note his use of the pronoun us, as though it should be understood that the UK is already an official combatant. In his quest to position the UK at the head of this new vanguard for greater military intervention, Elwood is aided by a supportive clamour emanating from what might regard as an unlikely quarter, the British left. Broach the subject of Ukraine with prominent figures in the Labour Party, the trade unions or the left-wing media, and you might be amazed to find that a critic of current government policy is not that Boris Johnson has been too cavalier or militaristic with regard to Ukraine. Rather, it is that Johnson has not been cavalier or militaristic enough. In other words, what they're really taking the conservative government to task for at the moment is its alleged unwillingness to escalate the war to their liking. Adjust the ideological contour slightly, and this new Labour Party is a mirror image of the Republican Party's current critic of Joe Biden. According to the incessant shrieks of GOP elected officials, Biden is nothing but a wimpy appeaser. Even though he is escalating U.S. involvement in new and exciting ways virtually every single day, just this week, Biden rolled out something like a back-to-back escalatory special. On Tuesday, he publicly accused Putin of committing genocide, and by Wednesday, he was announcing yet another $800 million in arms shipment, with these latest tranches featuring heavy weaponry than ever before, including a fleet of attack helicopters. That's coincided with a classified meeting held at the Pentagon, where the 8th largest U.S. defense contractors has been summoned in preparation for a protracted conflict against Russia. But no matter how much Biden intensifies the military intervention, it is never enough for the GOP, which constantly needs an angle of attack whereby they are lambasting Biden for not being sufficiently tough. In a heartwarming display of bipartisan unity, Donald Trump just went on Fox News and repeated Biden's genocide accusation. The jury is still out on whether Trump accused Putin of committing genocide only because he's secretly conspiring with Putin. Tune in tonight on Fake News MSNB for the latest updates. This GOP SQ never tough enough. Oppositional dynamic is also evident in the UK, except with putatively left-wing opposition figures leading the charge. Addressing a pro-war rally in London last weekend was Alex Sobel, a Labour Party MP who serves in the shadow cabinet of Keir Starmer, the current opposition leader. When I asked Sobel to clarify his policy grievance against Boris Johnson, he told me there has been a lack of military assistance, and there has been a lack of support within NATO more broadly in terms of military assistance. This can be translated as Boris Johnson, NATO and the US have not been military aggressive enough in Ukraine. That is the criticism. Expressing his reluctance to countenance any kind of negotiated resolution to the war, Sobel told me the Russians only understand force, they do not understand peace. This is a widely common allusion to a supposed genetic predisposition of Russians that makes them inherently warlike. Sounds very familiar to when James Clapper, the top intelligence official in the Obama administration, would go around intoning the Russians were almost genetically proven to co-opt and penetrate. Interesting. On this note, we've come to the end of the news. We say thank you for tuning in to listen. Until I come here next time, enjoy the rest of your day.